The call came at 2:47 in the morning. Ji-yoon woke to his phone vibrating against the nightstand, that particular rhythm that meant international, that meant urgent, that meant trouble. Beside him, Adiz stirred but didn't wake. Their daughter was finally sleeping through the night, and Adiz had been exhausted for weeks. He slipped out of bed carefully, grabbed the phone, and stepped into the hallway. The number was Korean. Blocked. He almost didn't answer. But something in his gut told him this wasn't a wrong number or a spam call. This was the thing he'd been waiting for his entire adult life, the thing he'd been running from since he was old enough to understand what his father's money really meant. "Yes?" he answered in Korean. "Gione." The voice was warm, familiar, and it made his blood run cold. "It's been a long time." Uncle Kang. Not his real uncle. That's just what Ji-yoon had been taught to call him as a child. Kang Min-sok, his father's oldest friend, his father's business partner, his father's connection to everything the Park family didn't talk about in polite company. "How did you get this number?" Ji-yoon kept his voice steady, but his hand shook. "I've always had your number," Kang said, and there was amusement in his tone. "I've always known where you are. Did you think running to Africa would make you invisible? Did you think building schools and hospitals would wash away what you come from?" Ji-yoon closed his eyes. "I don't have anything to do with that world anymore. I made that clear to my father years ago." "You don't get to make things clear," Kang said, and now the warmth was gone. The steel underneath showed through. "You're a Park. That's not a name you get to walk away from. That's not a legacy you get to pretend doesn't exist. What do you want?" "I want what I've always wanted. Loyalty, respect, and your cooperation in a matter that's about to become very complicated." Through the hallway window, Ji-yoon could see Lagos at night, the city lights, the distant hum of generators, the world he'd chosen, the world where he was just a philanthropist, just a man who loved his wife and daughter, just someone trying to do good. "I can't help you," Ji-yoon said. "You haven't heard what I need yet. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, I can't." Kang sighed. It was a patient sound, the kind of sound you make when dealing with a child who doesn't understand reality. "Your father is dying, Ji-yoon. Did you know that? Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. He has maybe 6 months. The world tilted. Ji-yoon braced himself against the wall. "What?" "He didn't tell you. Of course he didn't. You embarrassed him. His only son running away to play savior in Africa, marrying a black woman, having a mixed-race child. Do you know what people say about him in Seoul? Do you know how that reflects on our operations? I don't care about your operations. You should, because when your father dies, everything becomes yours. The company, the properties, the legacy, all of it, including the parts you've been pretending don't exist. I'll refuse it. I'll sign it all away." "To who?" Kang laughed. "Your mother? She's already agreed to step aside. Your cousins? They don't have the name. It has to be you, Ji-yoon. You're the heir, and in 6 months, you'll be the head of one of the largest criminal syndicates in East Asia, whether you like it or not." Ji-yoon's mind raced. His father dying, the empire waiting, the life he'd escaped pulling him back like gravity. "There has to be another way," Ji-yoon said. "There is," Kang said. "You come back to Seoul, you meet with me and the council, you hear our terms, you do this properly with respect for what your father built, and maybe, just maybe, we can find a solution that lets you keep playing humanitarian while we handle the real business. And if I refuse?" The silence stretched. When Kang spoke again, his voice was soft, almost kind. "Then we'll have to consider you a liability, and we'll have to neutralize liabilities in the way we always have. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "You're threatening me." "I'm threatening everyone you love," Kang corrected. "Your wife, your daughter, that beautiful family you've built in Lagos. Did you think we wouldn't research her? Adis Okonkwo, social media influencer, 20 million followers now, very visible, very vulnerable. It would be tragic if something happened to her, an accident, a robbery gone wrong. Lagos is such a dangerous city." Rage flooded through Ji-yoon, hot and consuming. "If you touch her, Then come to Seoul, Kang interrupted. Next week, alone. We'll talk, and maybe everyone stays safe. The line went dead. Ji-yoon stood in the hallway, phone clutched in his shaking hand, staring at nothing. Behind him, he heard the bedroom door open. Adi appeared, wrapped in one of his t-shirts, her hair messy from sleep, her eyes concerned. "Who was that?" she asked. He looked at her, his wife, the woman who had taught him what love actually meant, the woman who had no idea what kind of darkness lived in his family history. "Wrong number," he lied. "Go back to bed. I'll be there in a minute." She studied his face. She knew him too well. "Ji-yoon, please," he said, "just give me a minute." She hesitated, then nodded, and went back to the bedroom. Ji-yoon waited until the door closed before he let himself slide down the wall to sit on the floor, head in his hands, trying to figure out how to protect everything he loved from a past that had finally caught up with him. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, he told her he had to go to Seoul, business with the foundation, some legal matters involving his father's estate that couldn't be handled remotely. He kept his voice casual, normal, like this wasn't the beginning of the end of everything. Edis was feeding Ada, her daughter's face covered in mashed avocado, and she looked up with a frown. "Your father's estate? Is he sick?" "Just routine planning," Ji-yoon said. The lie tasted like acid. "Wealthy families do this kind of thing. Trust structures, inheritance frameworks. It's boring but necessary. How long will you be gone? A week? Maybe 2? She set down the spoon. Ada protested immediately, reaching for it with chubby hands. 2 weeks? Ji-yoon, we have that water system launch in Ibadan in 10 days. You promised you'd be there. I know. I'll be back in time. Will you? You tilted your head, and there was something in her eyes. Suspicion, worry. Is everything okay? He crossed to her, kissed the top of her head, breathed in the smell of her hair products mixed with baby food. Everything's fine, I promise. Another lie. They were stacking up. The flight to Seoul was 13 hours of hell. June couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop his mind from running through scenarios. Each one ended badly. Each one involved Adise or Adida getting hurt because of choices his father and grandfather had made decades before he was born. The Park family had built their fortune on semiconductors. That much was true. But the foundation of that fortune, the seed money that had started everything, had come from less legitimate sources. Shipping containers that carried more than electronics, logistics networks that moved things customs didn't see, political connections maintained through threats and bribes rather than legitimate lobbying. His father had tried to go straight in his own way. The legitimate business had grown to dwarf the criminal operations. But you didn't just walk away from people like Kang Min-sak. You didn't tell the syndicate you were done and expect them to wish you well. Ji-yoon had learned this at 16, when he'd accidentally walked into a meeting in his father's study. 3 men in expensive suits discussing someone who had betrayed the organization, discussing how to make an example, discussing it in the same tone you'd use to plan a business merger. His father had seen him in the doorway. For just a moment, their eyes had met, and Ji-yoon had seen something terrible in his expression. Not anger, not fear, just a deep, weary resignation that said, "Now you know. Now you understand what we really are." That was the day Ji-yoon had started planning his escape. College abroad, business school, the foundation, everything designed to create distance, to build a new identity, to prove he was different. But blood was blood, legacy was legacy, and now it was all coming due. The car that picked him up from Incheon Airport was too nice. Black luxury sedan, tinted windows, driver who didn't make small talk, not the foundation's usual car service. June knew immediately where he was going, and it wasn't his parents' house. They drove into Seoul, through neighborhoods June remembered from childhood, past his old school, past the parks where he'd played. Everything looked the same and completely different. He'd been gone too long. This city wasn't home anymore. The car stopped in front of a traditional hanok in Bukchon, beautiful, historic, surrounded by a wall that had seen centuries. the kind of place that looked like a museum but functioned as a fortress. The driver opened his door. "They're expecting you." June got out. His legs felt unsteady. He was 37 years old, had negotiated with government officials and warlords, had stared down armed militants in active conflict zones. But walking into this house felt like stepping into his own execution. The interior was exactly as he remembered, traditional Korean architecture preserved perfectly, wooden floors that gleamed, paper screens that filtered light, and in the main room, sitting around a low table, 4 men in suits. Kang Min-sok sat at the head. He was 68 now, gray-haired and elegant, looking more like a retired professor than what he actually was. He smiled when he saw June. "Juna," he said warmly, "you look well. Africa agrees with you." "Uncle Kang." June bowed properly, hating himself for the automatic respect. "You said we needed to talk." "Sit. Let's have tea first." It wasn't a request. June sat. A woman appeared with a tea service, poured for all of them, disappeared. The whole time, the other 3 men watched him. June recognized one of them, Lee Dong-woo, his father's former head of security. The other 2 were younger, harder, the kind of men who did things others didn't want to know about. "Your father sends his regards," Kang said, sipping his tea. "He wanted to be here, but the treatment makes him too weak." "How bad is it?" June asked. "Bad. He's made his peace with it. He's more concerned about what happens after." "And what happens after?" Kang set down his cup. "That depends entirely on you. Your father built something remarkable, June. He took what his father gave him, which was considerable but crude, and refined it, made it sophisticated, made it global. Do you know how many politicians in this country owe their careers to Park family money? How many major infrastructure projects only happened because we made certain obstacles disappear?" "I know what you do," June said quietly. "I've always known." "But you judged it. You ran from it. You thought you could wash away the stain with charity work." Kang's voice hardened. "You don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to enjoy the benefits of your family's wealth while pretending your hands are clean." "I haven't touched family money in 15 years. The foundation runs on my own investments." "Investments made with what?" Kang leaned forward. "Your trust fund? Your inheritance? Your father's connections that opened every door for you? You're living off the same money you claim to reject. You're just lying to yourself about it." The words hit like physical blows because they were true. Ji-yoon had told himself for years that he was different, that he'd broken free, but the foundation of everything he'd built was still tainted. "What do you want from me?" he asked again. "Cooperation. When your father dies, you'll inherit everything. The company, the properties, the board seats, the connections. We need you to maintain those connections. We need you to be visible, respectable, above suspicion. You'll never have to do anything directly. Just show up to meetings, sign papers your lawyers approve. Let us use the park name the way it's always been used." "In exchange for what?" "In exchange for your family's safety." Kang said it matter-of-factly. "Your wife, your daughter, they continue their lives in Lagos, completely unaware of any of this. You visit them regularly. You maintain the facade of your humanitarian work. Everyone's happy." "That's extortion." "That's reality," Kang corrected. "You were born into this, June. You don't get to opt out. Your grandfather understood this. Your father understood this. Now it's your turn." June's hands clenched into fists under the table. "And if I refuse?" "Then we have a problem." Kang gestured to one of the younger men who pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. June looked down at the screen. His stomach turned to ice. Photos. Dozens of them. Adise leaving their apartment in Lagos. Adise at a market with Adida. Adise meeting with local officials for a water project. Adise at the gym. Adise everywhere, doing normal things, completely unaware she was being watched. "We've been watching her for 6 months," Kang said conversationally. "Very impressive woman, your wife. Beautiful, intelligent, such a strong presence online. It would be a shame if something happened to her.
You son of a... Jiyun started to stand, but Lee Dong-woo moved faster, hand on his shoulder, pressing him back down with enough force to make the point. Sit, Kang said, and his voice had gone cold. You don't have the luxury of anger. You have two choices: cooperate and protect your family, or refuse and watch everything you love destroyed. It's really very simple. Jiyun forced himself to breathe, forced himself to think. How long do I have to maintain this arrangement? Until we say so. Could be 5 years, could be 20, could be forever. Kang shrugged. The organization needs stability. The park name provides that. You'll do your part. And what about Adise? Does she ever get to know the truth? God, no, Kang said, looking genuinely horrified. She's a liability precisely because she doesn't know. The moment she knows, she becomes a threat. People with moral compasses tend to make inconvenient choices. Better she stays ignorant and safe. Jiyun stared at the photos on the tablet, Adise smiling at their daughter, Adise working with communities who trusted her, Adise living her life with no idea that every moment was being documented, that her existence had become leverage in a game she didn't know she was playing. He thought about telling her everything, thought about running, thought about going to the authorities, but he knew how that would end. The parks owned half the Seoul Police Department. They had judges and prosecutors on the payroll, and Kang's organization had reach that extended far beyond Korea. There was no escape. There had never been any escape. 1 week, Jiyun said finally. Give me 1 week to think about this, to figure out how to structure things so I can maintain both lives. Kang studied him. You're not planning to do something stupid, are you? I'm planning to protect my family. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Good. Kang stood, and the meeting was over. 1 week, then you come back here and we finalize the arrangements. And Jiyun, he paused at the door, don't test us. We like you. Your father was our brother. But business is business. If we force our hand, we will not hesitate. Jiyun left the hanok feeling like he'd aged 10 years. He went to a hotel instead of his parents' house. He couldn't face his father yet, couldn't look at the man who had built this trap and somehow expected his son to walk into it willingly. He called Adise, heard her voice, bright and normal, telling him about Adida's day, told her he loved her, meant it with everything in him, and started planning how to live a double life. The week in Seoul was a nightmare of meetings with lawyers, accountants, and silent men who represented Kang's interests. Everything was being arranged: trust structures, corporate boards, political donations. It was all legal on the surface, but Jiyun knew what lay underneath. Every signature he placed bound him tighter to the organization. On his last night in Seoul, he finally visited his father. The house was quiet. His mother was out, whether by design or coincidence, Jiyun didn't know. He found his father in the study, thinner than Jiyun remembered, grayer, but still sharp-eyed. You came, his father said in Korean. I came. They looked at each other across decades of unspoken truths. Finally, his father gestured to a chair. Sit, we should talk. There's nothing to say. You sold me to them. I gave you an empire. His father's voice was quiet but firm. Everything I built for you, so you would have power, so you would have influence, so you would matter. I mattered before, Jiyun said. I was building something real, something good. You were playing humanitarian with blood money, his father said. At least now you'll be honest about what you are. And what am I? His father looked at him with something like pity. You're a park. That's all you've ever been. That's all you'll ever be. Jiyun left without another word. He flew back to Lagos the next morning, carrying the weight of his new reality like a stone in his chest. Ada immediately noticed that something was wrong. She always did. What happened in Seoul? She asked that first night back. They were in bed, Ada asleep in the next room, the Lagos night alive outside their window. Just family business, he said. My father's illness. It's complicated. Jiyun, she turned to face him, propped up on one elbow. Look at me. He did. Her eyes searched his face. You're lying to me, she said. Not a question, a statement. I'm not. Don't. Her voice was sharp. Don't insult me by pretending.
I know you. I know when you're holding something back. What happened? He wanted to tell her everything, wanted to unburden himself of the lies and the fear and the terrible bargain he'd made. But Kong's words echoed. People with moral compasses tend to make inconvenient choices. Ada had a moral compass that pointed true north. If she knew what his family was, what he was now complicit in, she would never look at him the same way. She might leave, she might take Ada, and even if she didn't, she would become a target just by knowing. I can't tell you, he said finally. I want to. God, you have no idea how much I want to, but I can't. Hurt flashed across her face, then anger. That's not how this works. We don't keep secrets. That's not us. I know, but this one time, I'm asking you to trust me. Please. Trust you to lie to me? Trust me to protect you. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned away, putting her back to him. I don't like this. Neither do I. They lay in silence. Eventually, she fell asleep. Ji-yoon stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to live with himself. The next 3 months were careful choreography. Ji-yoon split his time between Lagos and Seoul, maintaining the fiction that he was just managing his father's affairs. In Seoul, he attended meetings, signed papers, maintained the connections that kept Kong's organization running smoothly. In Lagos, he tried to be the man Ada had married. But the strain was showing. They fought more, about small things that weren't really about the small things, about his travel schedule, about his distance, about the way he seemed to be somewhere else even when he was physically present. You're losing me, Ada said one night after a particularly vicious argument about nothing. Do you understand that? Whatever you're carrying, whatever you won't tell me, it's destroying us. I'm trying to protect you, he said again, the excuse that was wearing thin. I don't need protection, she shot back. I need a partner. I need honesty. I need you, not this ghost who wears your face. Ada, no, she held up a hand. I've been patient. I've given you space. I've trusted that you'd eventually tell me what's going on, but I'm done waiting. Either you tell me what happened in Seoul, or I start making assumptions, and my assumptions are going to be ugly. He looked at her, this woman he loved more than his own life, and knew he was at a breaking point. Tell her and risk her safety. Don't tell her and lose her anyway. Before he could decide, his phone rang. Korean number. He ignored it. It rang again. Answer it, Ada said, her voice hard. Maybe whoever it is will be more honest with me than you are. He answered. What? We have a problem. Kong's voice was tight. Your wife's latest project, the water system in Ibadan, it's in our territory. Ji-yoon's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? The contractors she hired, the land where the system is being built, it all belongs to our partners in Nigeria. She's building on property we use for shipments. It's compromising our operations. Then reroute your operations, Ji-yoon said, aware of Ada watching him. It's a water system for a community that needs it. We can't reroute. The infrastructure is established. Your wife needs to cancel the project, or we'll handle it our way. The line went dead. Ji-yoon stood there, phone in hand, realizing with crystalline horror that the two worlds he'd been desperately trying to keep separate had just collided. Ada was standing now. What's going on? Who was that? Nobody. Wrong number. Ji-yoon, I swear to God, I said it was nobody. He yelled it, and she flinched. He never yelled. Not at her. Not ever. She stared at him. Who are you right now? He didn't have an answer. The Ibadan water project was scheduled to break ground in 2 days. Ada was going to be there for the ceremony. Local officials, international press, hundreds of community members who needed this system. Ji-yoon spent those 2 days trying to find a solution. He called Kong, begged him to find another way, offered money to relocate whatever operations they were running, promised increased cooperation in Seoul. Kong was unmoved. Cancel the project, or we'll do it our way. The morning of the groundbreaking, Ji-yoon woke to find Adele already dressed, checking her speech one more time. She was radiant in traditional Nigerian attire, excited about the impact this project would have. I'm coming with you, he said. She looked surprised. They'd been barely speaking since the fight. You don't have to. I want to. The drive to Ibadan was 3 hours. They didn't talk much. Adele went over her notes. Ji-yoon stared out the window, watching Nigeria blur past, trying to figure out what to do. They arrived at the site to find chaos. The land that was supposed to host the water system was torn up, equipment destroyed, and spray painted across the ruins machinery in English and Yoruba, "Leave." Adele stood there, staring at the destruction, her face a mask of shock and fury. What the hell happened? A local official approached, looking shaken. There were men here last night. They destroyed everything. They said this project couldn't continue. Who said that? Who were they? I don't know, but they were organized, professional. This wasn't random vandalism. Adele turned to Ji-yoon, and in that moment, he saw her put it together. The way her eyes changed, the way her body went rigid. You knew, she said quietly. Adele, you knew this was going to happen. I tried to stop it. You knew. Her voice rose. That phone call, that fight, you knew someone was going to do this and you didn't warn me. I couldn't. Why? She was advancing on him now, fury and hurt radiating off her. Why couldn't you warn me? Who were those men? What the hell is going on? Ji-yoon looked around. The local officials were watching. The press was starting to arrive. This was going to become an international incident. We need to go, he said quietly. Yes, here, Adele yelled. I deserve answers and I deserve them now. My family is connected to people, he said, desperately. People who do things, bad things. I've been trying to keep you separate from that world, but it's not working. She stepped back like he'd struck her. Connected how? My father, my grandfather. The family business isn't just semiconductors. It never was. What are you saying? Ji-yoon, what are you telling me? I'm telling you that the money we've been living on, the foundation, all of it, it comes from criminals. And now those criminals want me to be one of them. And when you built this project in the wrong place, you became a problem they needed to solve. The color drained from Adele's face. You're involved with criminals? Not by choice. You're involved with criminals and you didn't tell me? You let me walk into this situation completely blind. I was trying to protect you. By lying? Her voice cracked. By letting me build a project on criminal territory. By letting me put my name, my reputation, my entire community at risk? That's not protection, Ji-yoon. That's betrayal. He reached for her, but she jerked away. Don't touch me. Adele, please. How long? She was crying now, angry tears that carved tracks through her makeup. How long have you known about this? Since Seoul. 3 months. 3 months you've been lying to me. 3 months you've been sleeping beside me and keeping this secret. 3 months you've been letting me plan projects and make commitments while knowing that at any moment your criminal family could destroy it all. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, she screamed. You could have told me. You could have walked away. You could have done literally anything except what you did, which was lie and manipulate and treat me like a child who couldn't handle the truth. They threatened you, Ji-yoon said. They threatened Adele. If I didn't cooperate, if I didn't maintain the family position, they said they would hurt you. What was I supposed to do? She stared at him. You were supposed to trust me. You were supposed to believe that I was strong enough to handle the truth. Instead, you made decisions about my life, about our daughter's life, without even consulting me. That's not love, Ji-yoon. That's control. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is that I've spent 3 months watching you pull away and thinking it was my fault, wondering what I'd done wrong, trying to be understanding while you were actually involved with criminals who just destroyed a project meant to bring clean water to thousands of people. Around them, people were starting to stare. The press had cameras out. This was becoming an international incident. We need to go, he said. We need to talk about this privately. I have nothing to say to you. Her voice had gone flat, dead. I have a project to salvage and a community to protect. You need to leave.
I'm not leaving you here. Yes, you are. She looked at him with eyes that held no love, no trust, nothing but cold assessment. Because right now, you're the danger. You're the threat. You're the reason this happened. So you're going to get back in that car and you're going to leave. And when I get home, you're not going to be there. Adele, please. Leave, she said again, or I swear to God, I will tell every reporter here exactly what you just told me. I will expose your entire family. I will burn it all down. Is that what you want? He stared at her, seeing the woman he loved transform into someone he didn't recognize, someone harder, someone who had just learned that love wasn't enough. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, she replied, it is. Ji-yoon drove back to Lagos alone. He went to their apartment, packed a bag, and left. He couldn't stay there, couldn't sleep in their bed, couldn't look at Adele's toys scattered across the floor. He checked into a hotel, sat in the anonymous room, stared at his phone. 3 hours later, it rang. Unknown number. Yes? Mr. Park. The voice was Nigerian, male, unfamiliar. We have your wife. The world stopped. What? We have Adise Okonkwo, and if you want her back alive, you're going to do exactly what we say. The line went dead. Ji-yoon sat there, the phone still pressed to his ear, and felt his entire world collapse because he thought Kang's organization destroyed the water project. But what if it wasn't them? What if Adele asking questions, investigating who was behind the attack, had led her somewhere even more dangerous? What if she found out the truth about his family and someone else decided she knew too much? What if in trying to protect her, he'd actually led her straight into the jaws of something worse? He's still sitting there, frozen in horror, when his phone buzzed with a text message. A photo. Adele bound to a chair, eyes wide with fear, mouth gagged. And beneath the photo, one word. Come. If you want to know what happens next, if you need to see if Ji-yoon can save Adise, if you need to find out how deep this conspiracy goes and whether their love can survive the darkness closing in around them, you need part 3. Hit that like button right now, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, and drop a comment telling me, should Ji-yoon trust the kidnappers? Should he go to Kang? Should he try to handle this alone? Your comments shape where this story goes. Don't make me wait. I need to know you're ready for what's coming because part 3 is going to break you all. I'll see you there.